The Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2, is a lot better than Chapter 1. I was really not feeling the show so far after Chapter 1, and I just had a lot of mixed feelings throughout the week. Chapter 2 is making me feel a lot better about this show, and I'm really looking forward to the last 5 episodes now. This episode is 53 minutes. It's like 47, 48 minutes actually, but it's much longer than the first one, and it's got a lot more in it. Like, I'm super satisfied after this episode, and I'm actually quite looking forward to where the show's going to go now. So, Chapter 2, the Tribes of Tatooine, and that is the big main part of this once again. We do go back into the flashbacks for this episode, but it is actually probably the better part of the episode. So let's start off. We start off in the present day, actually, in the Mandalorian timeline, where Boba has taken over. Obviously, Fennec Shand ended up capturing one of the guys. They kind of learn that he was part of a group that was sent by the mayor. He said he was sent by the mayor, which we kind of were slightly introduced to in the first episode. And then Boba Fett goes and tries to meet with the mayor here on the Tatooine of Mos Espa or something like that. And he meets with the mayor, and he says that he didn't send these guys, and he ends up paying Boba Fett. And I don't know if it was really confirmed if the mayor sent these guys to attack Boba Fett or not, but it's the mayor did end up paying Boba and Fennec for bringing this guy in, and they ended up shooting him. So it was a really weird thing there. Maybe they'll explain it later on once they get back into the present timeline. Then we jump into Boba Fett going back to that cantina. I think Boba starts to learn that the Hutts might have been involved with those guys that attacked him, and he goes back. He tries to learn what's going on Tatooine here, and he asks some of the Twi'leks there in the cantina what's going on, and apparently the twins are on Tatooine, and they are causing trouble. They're stirring up trouble. And there they are. We have more Hutts in live action Star Wars. So these are, I don't know, I think there's some sort of relation with these Hutts to Jabba the Hutt. They're talking about how they're related to him. I didn't really catch if they were like siblings or cousins or whatever. It's just some sort of relation to Jabba the Hutt, I believe. And they're the twins, apparently. So you got a female Hutt here and then a male Hutt, and they're trying to pretty much take over for Jabba. They're coming in and just telling Boba Fett, like, I'm in charge. Not you, Boba Fett. We are in charge. We're taking over from Jabba the Hutt. We deserve to. And that's kind of the whole thing there. So now there's this rivalry between Boba Fett and these Hutts, and I think these Hutts are probably the guys who ended up sending the guys after Fennec and Boba in the first episode. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that's what it was. But yeah, Hutts are now in this show. And then we got to see this really mean-looking Wookiee, and I believe this character is someone that has shown up before. I ended up hearing that after I watched the episode. I did a little research, and I didn't know this character beforehand, but apparently this character has been in comics for Star Wars, some canon comics, and Black Chrysanthemum. I don't know the character at all. He's a bounty hunter character, I believe, and apparently he's been in Dr. Aphra comics. I don't know that character well at all either, but he is in live action now, so I guess that's pretty cool. But he did look super mean and really badass, honestly. I'm quite excited to see what they do with this character. I think they're going to do quite a bit, and he looks really mean. Like, he looks super mean. But Boba Fett, he's interacting with the Hutts, and they kind of come to an agreement that bloodshed is not really what they want at that time, so we didn't get to see some cool standoff between them, some battle and duel between them. But I think we'll see that later on with the bounty hunter and Boba, and just the people serving the Hutts and Boba. I think we're going to see that duel. Very mean looking Wookiee. Like, he's ready. He just looks like he's ready to kill anybody. Honestly, it's just crazy. And then here we go. We jump back into the Bacta tank, and the rest of the episode is a flashback. And we jump right back into the flashback of Boba Fett, living with the Tuscan Raiders. He's earned their trust, and we see him training. And right after we see him training, there's this train that's just going through the sands of Tatooine. We see that the train is actually being driven, or it's being driven by a droid, but it is occupied by the Pike Syndicate, or the Pikes, which is quite interesting because I don't really know exactly what they're doing, but they get ambushed. The Tuscans get ambushed, a few of them die, and Boba then later that night wants to help out the Tuscans deal with this train. So he goes off in the night, he goes to Tashi Station, And we end up seeing this character of Cammy, I believe. I remember watching this little deleted scene from A New Hope a while back. I don't know much about this characters that were supposed to be in A New Hope, but it is a new actress that is coming in to play this character. But here is an original shot here from A New Hope. This is a character we were supposed to see in A New Hope. I'm sure if you just look it up on YouTube, you can find the deleted scene from A New Hope, though. It was actually Luke going to Tashi Station. I know he mentions it in A New Hope, but in that deleted scene, he actually goes there and interacts with some of his friends, and she was one of his friends on Tashi Station. And we got to see this character in the Book of Boba Fett. I knew it was her. I actually saw her name pop up on the subtitles, so it was Cammy from A New Hope, which was a deleted scene. She didn't really play much of a role, but it was a nice little Easter egg, I suppose you could say. But Boba Fett, he sees these thugs go into this, Tashi Station, and he beats them up. He just completely kicks their ass, and then he takes their speeder bikes. He just wants their speeder bikes. He wants their speeder bikes because it's going to help him in the Tuscan Raiders deal with this train that's going through and ambushing them and wiping them out and shooting at them. And he teaches the Tuscans how to use these machines, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see him teaching these very tribal Tuscan Raiders how to use this newer technology that they just don't normally use. And then later on in the day, this train ends up going through the desert once again. They're shooting right back at the Tuscans. It seems like when they go through, it's like they're trying to just clear the Tuscan Raiders, kind of get rid of them. They're just kind of like a pest in the desert, and they're trying to, get rid of them. We don't really need them there. We'll just use them as target practice or whatever, Honestly, I think that's how these pikes are seeing them. And Boba has them all trained. They're all readied up, and they're ready to attack. And it just leads to an incredible fight scene on this train in the sands of Tatooine. And I gotta say, it reminds me of Solo, a Star Wars story, when Han Solo and Chewie were attacking the train, the Imperial train. I don't remember exactly where they were, but it reminds me of that scene. But it's a very, very different landscape, very, very different scenery. You get this awesome action scene. It's a good few-minute fight on this train against the Pikes. You get to see a good look of them. It kind of looked like they did in Solo, a Star Wars story. So there's lots of little hints there to visuals we would see from Solo. And I mean, it kind of makes sense because Solo kind of dived into the whole underworld of Star Wars in a way. So seeing the Pikes again was kind of cool. We've seen them obviously in the Clone Wars and stuff as well. And eventually, Boba Fett and the Tuscans, they beat the Pikes, they put them all on their knees, and they ask them what they're doing, and they're trying to travel through the desert with spice, apparently, and they were just trying to wipe out Tuscan Raiders just for the hell of it, and they were just kind of using them as target practice, and they were just kind of pests in the way, and they didn't want to have to deal with future Tuscan Raider incidents. Obviously, Boba defeats them, he crashes the train, and he helps the Tuscans defeat the Pikes in their train, and then they get to kind of ransack their train too and get all their goodies. And then later on in the episode here, this is kind of a whole end segment to the whole episode that I didn't really expect to see. We get to see even more. We get to see in the flashback hallucinations with Boba Fett here. So for a reward for helping them defeat the Pikes in their train and them attacking them, the Tuscan Raiders reward Boba Fett with this lizard, which is super strange. Like, I had no idea what was coming here. And the lizard goes into his nose. They kind of spray this dirt or this sand or dust into his face, and the lizard crawls into his nose. Like, I don't know. It was super strange. But once that happens, Boba Fett begins to hallucinate. And we get to see lots of cool scenes. We get to see Boba in his old armor from the original trilogy. You don't really see it for much. And then you come up to this tree, and you can see it's kind of like a flashback to when this was an ocean on Tatooine rather than the desert. And you got this tree, which is an amazing visual. Like, I thought this visual was the coolest visual in this episode, was just this tree with the waves and just his whole hallucination Boba's going through. And apparently it's to help him kind of reach his true peak as being one with the Sand people. And apparently, I don't know how exactly this all operates, because it kind of seemed like the tree wasn't really there. But he ends up getting tangled up in the tree, and he needs to kind of break free. It starts to grab him like it's alive. And then we see some flashbacks, and once again we got some young Boba flashbacks, and these are new flashbacks. These aren't scenes they're reusing from Attack of the Clones. These are scenes they are completely making new, and I love it. I absolutely love it. You get to see a young Boba on Kamino. It's always amazing to see more of Kamino. I really love just the lightning and the water and the sea. It just looks super cool. And you get to see young Boba looking at the Slave One, presumably looking at Jango Fett going off to do some sort of mission or task, and he's seeing his father fly off in the Slave One. And then after we see this, we get a reflection of young Boba, and that's really cool. Obviously, it's a CGI remake of young Boba Fett. Obviously, Daniel Logan is not young anymore, so you can't have him come back to play young Boba Fett, but they CGI'd him back into the reflection here. So I just really love these new flashback scenes for young Boba Fett. It just really it makes it all feel so much more connected, and I love it because Disney's been so reluctant to show us prequel connections a whole lot, and seeing this type of stuff, especially to like Attack of the Clones, I just love it so much, and I hope we get to see even more later on in the show. This is only episode 2, of course. The end of the episode is Boba Fett wandering back into the Tuscan Raider camp with this root, or this branch from the tree, and I guess the tree was really there. I don't necessarily know how it all worked out with the hallucination, with it grabbing him. I don't know how that all worked, if you know how real the tree was. I'm not really going to think too much on it, but that's how he gets the wood for his stick, or his gaffy stick, or whatever, the Tuscan Raider stick that we see he has in The Mandalorian. We get to see him finally get robed up like we do see him in The Mandalorian Season 2, so obviously this is kind of like a big lead up to The Mandalorian Season 2. I'm sure the next flashbacks we see, we'll see him looking at Mando and Cobb Vanth dealing with the Krayt Dragon. And then kind of the last big scene of the episode is Boba Fett with a few Tuscans here making his stick, and it's kind of like a big final entry point into becoming one with the Tuscan Raiders and their kind and their people and their ways. And I really love to see that. It really makes the Tuscan Raiders, it adds a lot of deep lore and interest to the Tuscan Raiders. I didn't really care much for the Tuscans before then, and now I got another understanding for them, and I just really love that they've added this aspect that I didn't really know I needed, but I really love the Tuscan Raiders now. Like, they're super cool. I look at them in a different way after this episode, and I really love it. The episode ends with this whole tribal dance with all their, all their gaffy sticks, or the sticks, and they're just around the fire, and that's how the episode ends. I'm sure we're going to dive into more Boba Fett going to find the Slave One, going to find his armor, and, maybe show his perspective on watching The Mandalorian and Cobb Vanth fight the Krayt Dragon, going to find the Slave One, and then it'll probably end up leading to Boba Fett going and flying off to go find Mando and Baby Yoda and get his armor back. So I think that's where the flashbacks are going to go. I think the flashbacks will end at episode 3, and then it'll dive right into the full story of the current timeline. Overall, I loved this episode a lot more than I did with the first episode. Like, the first episode of this show was, it wasn't great. There's a lot of better episodes in The Mandalorian Season 2. I say the Season 2, but just The Mandalorian in general had a lot of good episodes, and it just kind of felt like one of the lower episodes of The Mandalorian for that first Book of Boba episode. This one feels like one of the top episodes for Mandalorian, so it's obviously not The Mandalorian. It's a different show, and I really love that different feel that this show now has. It's not centered on, Din Djarin trying to, find his way around the galaxy with this new Baby Yoda, this Grogu character, and just kind of wandering around doing little missions. No, we get to follow Boba in his big journey after he got out of the Sarlacc pit. And I love this. This show is really picking up very quickly. I love it so much. It's super cool to see the Hutts in live action again, and the whole backstory with the Tuscan Raiders and the Sand People, and just seeing the Pikes in live action as well in Boba Fett. I just really love the whole entire vibe of it. I love his interactions with the Tuscan Raiders, how he became kind of one with the Tuscans, and it was awesome. It didn't need any big cameos from anything. It was just an amazing episode on its own. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, they proved themselves once again. I don't really rate episodes with the numbers, but I guess I would say maybe like a 9.5 out of 10. It was incredible. Definitely go check it out. I think the Book of Boba Fett's really going to pick up from here. And the first episode, a little slower, but the second one is a gigantic, long episode with a ton of action, a ton of story progression, and it is amazing.